3 p.m. only on Capuchin TV. Well, hello and a very good afternoon to you, our dear viewer of Capuchin TV, from wherever you're tuning in from, and welcome to yet another insightful episode of the Formni Faith Show with me, your host, Susan Bulemi. So on today's episode, we'll be having a discussion on bridging generational gaps. We're going to be talking about some of the different generations that we have that exist and why we have this gap among especially the young people and the elder generation in the society today. What are some of the causes and how can these two generations live in peace together? Well, with me here in our studio are two wonderful guests that are going to help shed more light on today's conversation. However, our dear viewer, I'd like to remind you, if you'd like to engage and participate in today's conversation, you can always send us an SMS via our SMS number 21760 or leave us a comment on our social media handles and your message will be delivered. So without further ado, I'd like to give my guests the opportunity to introduce themselves. Welcome.
Hello everyone, I'm Robert Mwangi.
Hello everyone, I'm Sidi Masha.
Okay, thank you so much, Sidi. Thank you so much, Robert, for being here today. And maybe we could just get straight into today's conversation. We are talking about bridging generational gaps, and a lot of our viewers might be wondering, what are we talking about when we say bridging generational gaps? So I'll start with you, Robert. When you hear the term generational gaps, what first comes to your mind?
I think it's the difference between the old and the young people. Yeah, I think that's the only difference I can say.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. How about you, Sidi? What does that mean to you?
I would like to second him. It's that difference between the older and the younger generation in terms of how we express ourselves and our values and everything in between.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Well, you've both mentioned that it's the different generations, especially the young and the older generation. And when you're talking about generations, you know, we have the Gen Z, the millennials, maybe first and foremost, which class do you belong to, Robert?
I'm a Generation Z. Yeah.
The Gen Z.
Gen Z.
CD?
Same to me, I'm a Gen Z. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And maybe before we move forward, maybe we could just tell our viewer today, what are some of the qualities that make you a Gen Z?
I think the Gen Z are creative enough to discover new opportunities in life than the old people. Yeah.
Okay, how about you, CD?
In my opinion, the Gen Z are very expressive. We are not afraid to voice our opinions, and we are not afraid of other people misunderstanding us. Yes.
And you've mentioned something that is very important, that the Gen Z are expressive. They are not afraid of speaking out their mind. And that brings me to the next question. What do you think, do you think the Gen Z being more expressive and being ready to speak their minds, do you think that brings a drift between them and the older generations before them?
Yes, most definitely, because for the older generation, compared to the now generation, the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, we're very expressive, as I said. But the older generation, they were more reserved, and for them, respect was demanded as silence to them. So basically, if you had your own opinion, you have to keep it to yourself, because that would be seen as disrespect. But for us, we are not afraid. Even if you think that we're being disrespectful, just voicing out our opinions, as long as we have already voiced out our opinions, that's all that matters to us. So yeah, so that causes a very big rift between the older generation and our generation right now.
How about you, Robert? Do you agree with CD?
Yeah, I agree with her, because there's I will explain it to you later, because sometimes if you want to voice your opinions, it can be seen as disrespect to the parents. So sometimes you just have to comply with what they have to say, because they have lived long enough than us. Yeah.
Okay, and I think the point on us or the Gen Z voicing their, speaking out what they need to say, their minds and everything, is one of the major factors that leads to us having a gap with the older generations. But apart from that, what else do you think causes the older generation and us to have that gap?
I think technology, it creates a very big gap because unaweza text mzazi, una ile nguvu ya kutext mzazi lakini hakuna ile nguvu ya kumwambia directly.
Yeah.
So I think technology has created a very big gap and there's an imbalance there. So I think that's the only way. Yeah.
How about you, Sidi? What do you think are the other causes?
I'd also like to second him. Technology has become a very big thing in this generation, unlike the older generation. Technology was not as advanced. And for an example, right now, when you go online, there's so many people telling you this is how you're supposed to raise the current generation, or other people inciting the current generation, this is what used to happen in the older generation, but we can't forego with whatever was happening in the past, and that actually causes a very big gap and misunderstanding between both generations. Yes.
Okay, and maybe that brings me to the next question. Robert, you had mentioned earlier, and I think maybe we should just talk about it right now. Have you maybe personally experienced misunderstanding, or you tried communicating with someone, especially people like the millennials or the Gen X? Have you ever found yourself in a place where you had a misunderstanding, and how was it?
No. So, I was to go for attachment. Now, on August, I came here for a trip. And before I had applied here, Capuchin, and I came and talked to the director himself. I expressed my desire to work here, and it was accepted. Everything was done, and I returned to Mombasa. Now, explaining it to the parents, it's another thing because the costs come in, the transport costs to come here every day. Now they were opting me to go to KBC. And for me, I did not want to go to KBC. I had to say no because there's some plan I had for myself. But because of one, two, three things, I decided to come here. So that's the only thing that was, and I had to apologize by them because I was very harsh. It was very chaotic, but they had to understand the situation on the ground, because there is a difference on going and the desire to work. If you don't have the desire to work in a certain place, you cannot perform very well. So that's the only thing.
And maybe before we go to CD, maybe if I could ask, after that altercation, or rather after that experience, what did you take from that in terms of how to communicate with your parents? Because it will help a lot of our viewers to understand how to communicate with people from the other generation.
I think you should communicate. There's that direct communication that is needed, because for me, I communicated by phone, but I did not have strength to confront them. So at least there should be that kind of interaction.
A one-on-one.
So that you can understand what I want and what I don't want.
Sidi, have you ever experienced have you ever found yourself in a position where you had maybe a little issue or misunderstanding?
Yes, most definitely. Because personally, I'm very confident and expressive. So even when I am communicating with my parents on certain things, I usually want to like take my stand, because I believe that right now, as I am, of course I'm still living in their home, but I still want to shape my own path, and I have my own self-identity. And sometimes they would also want to like come with their opinions, oh, you should do this and not do that. You see, as he said, there is a difference between going there to work and choosing why you actually want to work, you know. So basically, yes, I have had misunderstandings with my parents, especially when it comes to shaping my own path and also in how I identify myself. So yeah.
And I think that is usually the biggest problem that you have, because in as much as we want to shape our lives and shape our future, our parents also have that mentality that they need to guide you, they need to help you, you know, do everything, and sometimes you just want to do it yourself and see how you can do it. So I think that is actually a major issue that brings this misunderstanding between the two generations. Okay, so moving forward, I would like to ask, do you think that maybe we, the Gen Z, okay, I'd like to use the Gen Z example a lot because the Gen Alpha are still young, so the Gen Z are the ones that are a bit older. Do you think the Gen Zs, maybe we also don't understand, or maybe we try not to understand the older generation, their point of view, their perspective, and that's why we always have these issues? Do you think that's what happens, Sidi?
Yes, because a lot has changed. And something about the older generation that I have noticed is most of the time they're resistant to change. And us as Gen Z, we always look forward to change. And in the generation that we are in right now, nothing is constant. You get? So yeah, basically, for the older generation, they need to understand that change is always going to happen no matter what. Okay, and then also the younger generation should also understand that the older generation were in a different time, and most of the things that are happening currently weren't happening in their timeline. So we should give them grace as well, and be able to understand them and listen to them, as well as the older generation to us. Yes.
Robert, what's your thought on that?
I think the times at the past are very different than what is happening now. So I think for Gen Zs, they should find a balance on what was done in the past, and to refine it on what you can do to improve yourself. So I think that's all I can say.
Okay. And okay, I would, Sidi, you mentioned that the Gen Z should give the older generation some grace and try to understand them. Okay, maybe what ways or what can be done? What can the Gen Zs do to promote better understanding and better communication? Because I feel like communication is the biggest issue that we have with the older generation. We don't get to align in terms of communication. So in what ways or what can the Gen Zs do to promote better communication with the older generations or the generations before us?
I think for one thing is intentional dialogue, because I can't want to express what I want to say, and yet the older generation doesn't want to understand what I want to say. So basically, I think if we also have like forums where we can have active dialogue between the Generation Z and the older generation, I think that would also be beneficial. And I'm sorry I'm diverting from your question, but for the older generation to also understand that, they should also understand that just because I am expressing myself doesn't mean I'm being disrespectful to you. I can express myself, and if you don't agree with it, we can sit down, talk about it in a very calm manner, and facilitate a dialogue. You know. So yeah.
Okay, and that is actually something that is very important, because a lot of times they have a defensive, or I don't know if that's the right word to use, defensive mechanism, whereby you find when you're trying to tell them or trying to communicate something that both of you don't agree on, they might think you're trying to start an argument, of which what you've talked about is very important, that people should just learn to sit down, have a conversation, and then you can all be on the same page by just talking it out, right?
Yes.
Robert?
So I think there should be dialogue, but the Gen Z should take that opportunity to win the trust of the parents, the generation, the millennials in short. So they should take their actions seriously and be responsible of what they say. Even if you want to express your thoughts about this and this, it should be done according to what you say, and that's how it should be.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I would also like to bring in the aspect of culture and tradition, because I feel like that is also something that creates a big problem sometimes when it comes to this generation, the current generation, which is Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and the millennials, and so on. Do you think sometimes the older generations are still stuck to the past cultural ways, their traditional ways, and that is what brings these issues? And how can we go about that? Sidi, you could go first.
As I said before, the older generation is quite resistant to change, as I have observed. So I think most of them are actually stuck with the old culture and the traditions. And culture and tradition actually brings so much pressure and so much expectation to today's generation in places where it doesn't fit. For example, like the older generation in that culture, silence always meant respect. So if you tell me something and I'm silent, I have respected you, and whatever you say goes. But right now, as I said earlier, we need to voice our expressions. We need to be given that platform to say what we want to say. So in terms of culture and tradition, I think the only thing is to embrace change and understand that things are not just where they were before. Yes.
Robert?
They should be changed, because the past is past. Cultures, even though the millennials respect their culture enough, it's very hard for them to leave it, but they should embrace change, because the past is past and the present is the future. So they should embrace it.
Okay, maybe some may argue that we can't completely do away with culture and tradition. So what can the Gen Z, or maybe how can the Gen Z also try to embrace culture in a way that it also helps them to have better communication and better interaction with the older generations? Because at the end of the day, culture will still be here, and it's what makes us who we are. However, maybe, okay, how can the younger generation just try and embrace culture in a way that it still doesn't make them feel like their voices are not being listened to, but at the same time it helps them engage better with the older generation? Maybe what can they do, CD?
I'd like to challenge your question. You know, it's going to be so ironic for me to respect a culture that I do not understand. In this day and age, culture is not as embraced as it was before, because you know, once people move from the rural setting to the urban setting, it's like most of the cultural things are done away with. And sometimes if I do something that's against that culture and you come and reprimand me, oh, our culture states this and this, but I didn't know. I wasn't taught like that, you know. So I think it's up to the older generation to foster that culture in us, because I can't be curious about something that I do not know of or am not aware of. Yes.
Okay. Robert?
I think culture can be embraced in some way, but not all of it, because there's some culture that has a lot of lessons, life lessons, and even though they can't go into the current times, but you can take some lessons so that you can go on with life. That's how I can take it.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And okay, moving forward, I think we've talked a lot about some of the negative things that are bringing this generational gap, but are there any positive things? Is there maybe some of the aspects or some of the matters that bring these two generations together, and it's not always about they have a misunderstanding or there's miscommunication? Is there anything that brings two generations together? CD, you could go first.
As much as technology has caused a rift, I think that's also something that has brought these two generations together.
Yeah.
The way technology is right now, if, for example, I've seen on TikTok, on Instagram, older people or older parents who have Gen Z children go online and they try to educate others on how to treat the younger generation, how to understand them. So if your parent actually watches such videos, they're able to understand you better, and you're able to have a certain dialogue about it, like, what do you think about this? Do you think this is honest? Or so I think technology has also brought us together in a way.
Okay. Robert?
I think in terms of coming together, it's family gatherings that brings a sense of togetherness. I don't think technology brings that kind of togetherness, but if you just remove the phones away, gather and have a honest conversation, there's some things that you can discuss. There are some even lessons that can be passed to us, but not like technology, because it can't bring that kind of togetherness.
Okay, okay. Maybe just to echo on what CD has said, especially on TikTok, I've seen that of late the millennials and the Gen X, they're really appreciating TikTok. You find people creating videos with their kids, and okay, to some point it brings an understanding, even though you've also mentioned something valid, that phones aside, also the physical family gatherings are also important. So I think both of them do work in different ways, according to the different approach that you have. Okay, moving forward, I would like to ask, do you think the Gen Z, or rather the Gen Alpha, do you think they are misunderstood a lot by the, especially, okay, let me use the example whereby online there was a time we had this conversation, or rather a debate, whereby people are saying the millennials do not understand the Gen Z. So I would like to ask, maybe what are some of the things, or how can the Gen Zs, how can they express themselves in a way that this older generation understand them, and they don't see them, they don't stereotype them as this generation is the generation of stubborn kids or kids who don't listen? How can they express themselves in a way that they are not misunderstood? CD.
Well, I think the stereotype is still going to be there, because there's also a way the Gen Z refer to the millennials and the Gen Y. So it's going to be there. And as I also mentioned before, I think dialogue can work so much better. Dialogue and openness. So the older generation has to be open to listen to us and to hear what we have to say. They should be open to learn everything that's happening right now with the younger generation, and they should also be open to embrace change. So basically, when it comes to like bridging generational gaps, I think my key takeaway: openness, understanding, and dialogue, basically, to also answer your question.
Okay, thank you for that, Robert.
I think togetherness, that kind of dialogue. If you have a dialogue with your parents, with your uncles, I think there's some type of understanding that comes into place, because you can place your wants at the table, what you want to do, and you can say this is the only way that I want in life, not this way. So I think there should be that kind of togetherness, so that trust comes in, and so that commitment comes in also.
So the key points is openness and togetherness. Okay. So let's bring in the aspect of the various institutions that we have. And a lot of the young people, especially the Generation Z, they are found in schools. Most of them are still students. And the older generation, you find them mostly in, churches and in their various workplaces. So what role do you think these institutions can play in helping to bridge this generational gap? What do you think they can do, or what advice can they give to these various people and these various generations so that we can bridge this gap? Robert, you will go first.
I think they should be like, let me say, how do I say it? Like seminars for parents and for parents alone and for kids for alone, because parents should be taught how to, not be taught, but how to understand this current generation, because there's somehow of a clash. You want this, your parent doesn't want this, So I think the seminars should come into place, and even for us, for Gen Z, we should be taught how to communicate with a more respectful tone, because we can go in to a certain extent that it's not required. So I think that should be there in seminars.
Okay, how about you, CD?
Not far from what he said, but networking forums can always work. Between the older generation and the younger generation, in churches, in schools, just a forum where people can be educated or just create an awareness of this is what's happening in the current generation. And you see, like the dialogue that we are having right now, such dialogues with like the older generation and the younger generation in such networking forums could also work.
Okay. And I'd like to take it back to the social media aspect. I know we had talked about that earlier, but apart from because I feel like we emphasized more on the TikTok and that as a platform, apart from that, maybe which other platforms or in which other different ways can we use social media to bridge these generational gaps?
Maybe we could start with Robert.
Okay, Robert, you can go first.
So my only point is togetherness. Interactions. Sometimes you don't have to be on your phone always. Sometimes you have to talk to your parents. Seek advice from them, because they are the ones who have stayed long enough than us. So I think interactions should come into place, because if you just stay, if you just be on social media for a long time, there's that kind of there's no concentration. It brings even diseases. So I think you should put social media on hold and have some interactions with their parents.
Okay. CD?
For technology, it's not a guarantee that it will always bridge that gap between the generations. So I would also like to second him. I think we should foster more togetherness, more gatherings, so that we can sit down and talk and have real-time conversations.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And maybe as we are about to conclude, according to your own views, we've talked about how we can fill these generational gaps that we have. What do you think, or how do you think our society will look like after we've filled up these generational gaps and now people are working in togetherness, like you've said, Robert? What do you think our society would look like, or what impact will it have in the society? Robert, you could go first.
So I think there'll be a very huge impact, because if, for example, in jobs, in government services, if there is that kind of trust that you can let young people take jobs even in your homes, even I want that kind of togetherness will be very, very huge, because if there is trust, if there's, how do I put it, if somewhere, how do I put this, if you work with a person and there's that kind of a trust and a bond, the work is very easy, work is very enjoyable. I think it will have a very huge impact.
And okay, before CD, you could give us, I think what you've actually mentioned is very important, because we've seen how in many organizations or many workplaces already the elder generations have the notion that working with Gen Zs is very difficult. They don't listen, or you can't tell them to do something that they do not want to do. So I feel like if we have that trust among each other, it would really help. CD?
Just to echo what he said, once we bridge this generational gap that is there, there's going to be trust, social cohesion, and unity. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Now, finally, any message that you'd like to share with the young generation that is watching, because I feel like they relate a lot, because you are all of them are your age mates, to the young generation and also to the older generation, in terms of filling these generational gaps that we have. Robert, you could go first.
So I think there should be respect in every aspect in life, that respect and discipline, in short. So you should, in every aspect of life, in everything that you do, keep God first, be disciplined, and everything will be okay.
Okay, thank you so much for that. CD, any message you have for the young people and the older generation that is watching?
For the young people, as he said, let's learn to respect our elders. And even if you want to voice your opinion or express yourself, do it in a way that is respectful, and also give the older generation grace, because a lot is happening and change is not always easy. So I think grace and respect as well. And then for the older generation, it's also beneficial to also respect the younger generation as well. Give them an ear and be open to understand what the younger generation has to say without reprimanding them. Yes.
And I think there's something that you mentioned more than once, and I think it's very important for us as the young people to understand that change is not that easy. We should also give the older generation the grace and give them time to embrace change, because even as for us, there are things that you see we are not willing to change like that fast, especially when it comes to the tradition, like we had mentioned earlier, in the culture. For us, as it is difficult, it's also the same for them. Okay, thank you so much for that. And our dear viewer, we've really had a lot from our guests today, and maybe we could read feedback that we are getting from today's conversation. We have Fifi Emush, who says she's following, and we also have Magdalene from Nairobi. She says she's enjoying today's conversation. Thank you so much, Magdalene, for following. We also have Jael Diana from Thika, who says she's enjoying today's conversation and she's taken a lot, especially in terms of communicating with the older generation. And finally, we have Moravero, who says she's also enjoying today's conversation and she's following. Thank you so much, our dear viewers, for engaging in today's conversation. And before we conclude, any parting shots that you have? Maybe you want to add anything else to whatever you've said? You want to say hi to anyone? Now is the time. Robert?
Okay. My only message is we should not give up in life. You know, these times are very difficult. So I think we should keep going, keep God first in everything. Because, you know, even that story of coming here, it's just by prayer. Yeah. True. I think my prayer was answered. Yeah. So I think you should keep God first, be disciplined, follow the commandments, and everything will be okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, CD.
I think everything that I've said has just come back to understanding one another, and yeah, basically, and I'm also honored to be here to have such a conversation, and I'm looking forward to many forums that will invite the older generation and the younger generation to have such topics. Yes,
because I feel like it would also be important if we got their perspective.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, the both of you, for being here today, and I feel like our viewers have taken something from whatever you have had to say. And thank you so much, our dear viewer, for tuning in today's show. And maybe all I can say is that our experiences and perspectives may differ across the different generations that we have. However, if we have respect and if we have proper communication, and just like Robert and CD have emphasized, if we have togetherness, then this gap that we have between the different generations will be filled, and we'll all have unity and we will work with togetherness. So I've been your host, Susan Bulemi. Until next week, same time, same place. Be blessed and have a wonderful week ahead. Well, hello to you, our dear viewers of Capuchin TV, and welcome to the Family Faith Show, whereby we get to interact with the youth in various ways.
Let's stop judging people according to their tribes.
We present to you fresh perspectives, exciting conversations, engaging debates, Bible trivia discussions, showcasing of talents such as singing, dancing, art, and so much more from guests who keep it real and authentic.
Sasa wewe, nitajuaje hautanihurt? It's true that human nature covers us,
So buckle up, because this season is about to be epic with me, your one and only host, Susan Bulemi. Keep it locked right here on the Family Faith Show every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. only on Capuchin TV.